I went into Walmart the other day and I was like, honestly, not that bad. I was like, okay, I think I've been dramatic. Like, I don't think I'm above Walmart anymore. Like, I think I am poor enough to where I'm not above Walmart anymore. So
I'm also
good news, guys.
Hello and welcome to the Nerdiest podcast, the show where nerds talk about nerdy things. I'm one of your hosts, Nick Barrett, and as always, I'm joined by my ride or die, Mr. Jackson Glass. And today, we are going to be talking about Indiana Jones. That's right, we are continuing our revisiting series by going to the very popular adventure franchise, Indiana Jones. And of course, the new one is coming out, or maybe is out by the time you're listening to this, if you don't listen to it in release week. And we're going to be giving some thoughts and predictions on that because we haven't seen it yet. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We'll obviously, as always, be recapping our weeks and how that's been. Speaking of which, I'm going to pass it over to Jackson. How have you been? How's your week doing? Also, before I do that, I'm going to give a brief disclaimer. This episode's going to be rough.
Yeah.
Because we were supposed to record it last weekend, but I woke up last weekend with the worst sore throat in the world. And you can probably still hear it. And you'll see me lean away to cough because I'm still getting over it. And then Jackson was completely fine last week. And then over the course of his week, which he'll tell you about, now he has a sore throat. So we're both not the best throat-wise.
Yeah,
but
the show must go on.
The show must go on. We're still here to do an episode. So Jackson, I pass it over to you. How have you been? How are you doing?
Man, I've been really good. And you can probably hear now that I'm talking how insanely congested and just sore I am. And that's not great. But you know what is great? If you followed us on Instagram at The Nerdiest Podcast and subscribed on YouTube at The Nerdiest Podcast. We're doing great original content. You can see when episodes come out. It's going to be so great. So you should follow us on Instagram at The Nerdiest Podcast. Subscribe on YouTube at The Nerdiest Podcast. We have some amazing stuff coming up. And I'll see you there. My week was wild because I was leading a group at camp for my church this week, and I have no voice anymore because we were singing loud and I had to talk loud because there was 1,200 people there, and they were very loud. Everyone's talking, so you have to, if you're... Sorry. This is already not going great. If you have to talk loud over everyone... And so day 2, I lost my voice. We left Monday, and by Tuesday afternoon, I had no voice. So what you're hearing now is me starting to regain my voice. So it was a great week. It was exhausting, but it was so much fun. It was wonderful. I saw God move there, and it was so fun, so good, 10 out of 10. I didn't get to watch any movies, and so Nick, his movie count is going to be so much higher than me. But, man, it was a good week. I woke up at 12 today. We got back yesterday at 3 p.m. after being gone since Monday. Yesterday being Friday. And I just got in bed last night and I clocked out. And I woke up this morning at 12, which is very uncharacteristic for me. I usually wake up at 7 or 8 very naturally. 12 o'clock, guys. This is what children do to you. They suck your energy and they suck your soul. And it's amazing. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10. So that was pretty much my week. That's all I did. I say that's all I did. I clocked 20,000 steps a day. We were everywhere. It was over 90 degrees every day. It was in Alabama. We put in the work. We put in the hours. We took what's ours. Highly recommend. Very good week. I just need to pass out for another 12 hours before I'm back to myself. But all very good. I'm about to finish my summer stats class. Once that's done, I'm going to be hammering out some content because this summer I really wanted to do a ton of content, but stats really held me back from that just because of the time commitment. So once that's done, expect a lot more content from me, from the podcast and personally. And so very good stuff. I'm very happy to be here. Nick, How was your week?
My week was a week. We were talking a little before we started recording, and I was like, I didn't really do a ton this week because I'm at that point where I have a job now. So my week really is just, I was working all week, and I watched some movies here and there. I did spend a little time this week working on some behind the scenes stuff with the podcast. Scripting on a couple YouTube videos, working on like our big summer plans, which we'll keep teasing like that just a little bit at a time. Wink, wink. It's coming soon. And I also, if you look at the podcast YouTube channel, you'll notice the banner's changed. We got some new icons done. Huge thanks to Zoe, by the way, who's done pretty much all of our logos, and they look amazing. So
what a legend.
That's great. So I updated some of that stuff. That's really all I've been doing, that and watching movies. I've learned the secret little hack of watching movies while I'm at work, because the job I do is just taking information from one monitor and plugging it into another monitor, and it's not like super challenging. And it's nice because I do get to do multiple things. Like we have productions and I get to edit a little bit too. So there's some variety there. But when I am just doing like the main job, I can sit there, put one earbud in, and listen to a movie in the background, or like I guess watch a movie in the background while I work. And they're all like rewatches, because I don't want to watch anything new, because that will genuinely like distract me, because I'll be trying to pay attention. And we'll get to our movie count here in a little bit. And for the first time in a while, I'm gonna bring back a hot take. I have a hot take this week.
Oh gosh. Okay. And hot take.
I'll use this hot take, and then we can kind of segue into like our movie watches and stuff. So, as you can see, I have two shelves behind me, and Jackson and I were talking about one of our favorite pastimes is to get Lego sets and then hop on FaceTime, queue up a movie on the group watch, and build Lego sets and talk while we're watching a movie. So we're talking about doing that for Prince of Egypt, because they just put Prince of Egypt on Netflix. I think it's on Netflix. And neither of us have seen it. Yeah, which is shocking.
In a long time. I've seen it like twice, but I was very little, and so
it's shocking for two Christian film bros who haven't seen like one of the most iconic Christian films. So as I was doing that, I was like, oh, I need a Lego set to build. And then I kind of got distracted, like going down the rabbit hole of Lego sets. And I was like, oh, let me look at the new, like they're doing a new Cinderella's castle from Magic Kingdom. And I was like, oh, I missed the last one. I'll get this one, because like it looks cool. I love the Disney castle. And I want to get it. And now, because I have such limited shelf space, I have to actually measure out and make sure I have the space for the Lego set. So I was like, oh, let me look at this. 31 inches tall. Okay, that's not that bad. I pull out a tape measure. It was big. It was huge. And I was like, why is this so tall? Like, it comes up to my hip. And I'm 5'7". So I was shocked. Ooh. I was like, that is a tall Lego set. Why? And it's like 24 inches wide. I was like, I do not have a physical space that can contain this Lego set. So I'm not getting it. And also, probably better to save that $400 for, I'm trying to save up so I can get a Mac Studio and kind of just reinvent my entire desk. Because right now it is just a mess of cables and all this stuff running off of a MacBook, and I want to get something a lot more powerful. So when I do edit from home, I can, but I also can live stream stuff. Like, I'd love to do Minecraft streams, but my computer right now cannot handle running Minecraft and OBS at the same time. My computer can't handle running OBS and having a cam link plugged in without lagging. So like even being able to do something like that is what I want to save for, especially now that I have a full-time job and I'm making like real adult money. It makes it a lot easier to save. So
have you seen the Apple Vision Pro?
That new like the VR headset thing? Yeah, I think it looks really stupid. And I would not pay $3,500 for it.
I think that it's so interesting to me because when Apple does something like this, it makes it a lot more accessible and seem a lot more realistic when it's pretty much just like an Oculus Rift. But the Oculus Rift was marketed towards a gaming community. And so the Oculus Rift is like you play Beat Saber, you do this, and like you do the metaverse stuff, whatever. Personally, I don't know of anyone that's into the metaverse. They're like, generally speaking, the more people I talk to, they're kind of like, yeah, it's kind of stupid. But I think this is the first like AR, VR headset thing that I think is being marketed to a general audience. And I'm really interested to see what happens because you're talking about getting a new computer. I'm like, well, will this become one of those things where you're like, oh, it's like getting a new phone. You're like, oh, I got this new AR thing. Personally, I don't think so. I don't think it will because it's like we are a culture of convenience, and putting on this giant headset thing and needing to do all this stuff, that's not convenient. And so that's been all in the news recently is the Apple Vision Pro. I think it's too expensive, and I don't really think it's super useful. I don't.
Now, here's I don't know if you've seen this, and I don't know what it's called. It's like the Vision Quest or something. I could find it, but it's a pair of glasses that can hook into your game console, including the Nintendo Switch, and then it projects like a 120-foot screen in front of you.
Oh my
but
gosh.
No one can see it except for you. So if you want to play the Switch on a huge screen on like a plane, you can.
Yeah.
And if you and I were on a plane and we both had a set of the glasses, we can sync them up and then we can both see the same screen and play together. It's
That's awesome.
Really cool. I don't know how it works. Like, what if I'm staring at something that's not a flat surface?
Right.
How does that work?
Right.
Because that's how projections work right now. So it's something I definitely want to look into. It's like $500 a pair. So it's a little, like, the technology's a little too expensive right now, but it's definitely something I would look into.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know, 5-10 years from now when it's a little more affordable.
Right.
I would definitely, because I think that's a really cool concept.
That's a really good idea.
You don't have to stare down at this tiny little screen. Mm-hmm. You can just put glasses on, and then it's right there in front of you. And it's not, like, straining your neck to look down. Because have you seen that, like, it's like a diagram where it's like how much your head weighs based on where you're leaning.
Oh,
and it's like if you're leaning all the way forward, it's like 120 pounds. But if you're looking back, it's like 10 pounds. It's real. It's like, the science is there and it makes sense.
Right.
It's just a really weird thing. So yeah, the glasses are really cool. The YouTuber beat 'em ups that I watch is the one who plugged them and has used them. And I'm like, they sponsored him, and I'm like, man, that's cool. Still $500 though,
right?
And like, I don't know, it's a lot of money.
I wish I had, like, that's how I know I've made it is when I can be like, yeah, that sounds good, and I just like, yeah, I can buy that. That sounds good.
Speaking of sponsorships, I want to apologize to the listeners just for a minute. I think specifically the Spotify listeners, because I think that's the only place the Anchor ad or Spotify for podcasters ad runs. I'm sorry, because first of all, to fit all of the new information, I know we've apologized for this before, to fit all the new information they want crammed in that ad, the ads are like a minute long.
Yeah.
I'm sorry they're that long. We're working on not having to use the ad. We're trying to get there. But also, apparently they're only running monthly ads now, because I got an email this week that was like, oh, we have a new sponsor for you. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Is this like actually a new sponsor?
Right.
No, it's the same ad campaign, but it's for July. So instead of having one that just runs year round, because right now, if you listen to an ad this episode, it's the June ad campaign.
Right.
And then they sent me an email for July. And I'm like, so are we just doing one a month instead of just one that runs continuously? I don't know why they're doing it that way, unless they're like, because we're starting your ad over every month, you don't make as much. Because the RPM is not like, The ad we had running before was doing substantially well because it had been running for months, and the RPM was really getting up there. But if you're starting over every month, you're starting from zero.
Yeah, I don't
and you
know.
just can't realistically get there in 30 days. It's not possible. So
Yeah.
I don't know what their issue is.
I don't know what they're doing. It's kind of.
By the time we get to August, we probably won't need the ad anyway.
Yeah,
I'll leave it because it's
leave it at that.
just saying. We might not need the ad by the time we get to August.
I
That's all I'm
also got an email this week that it was like updates to Apple Podcasts in iOS 17. And I was like, oh, finally, they're doing basic needs for the podcast app on Apple. And they
Actually not.
Well, so the only thing they added is they added some new categories for podcasts. Apple Podcasts has their own TikTok now, and they support individual thumbnails for episodes. So in the past,
that last one is actually really big.
That's a big deal. So in the past for Spotify, you can upload individual thumbnails for episodes, where on Apple Podcasts, you could only upload your show thumbnail, and it would be that for every episode. So now you can do it individually, which is a big deal. But there's also so many things that I'm like they're like basic needs that Spotify has that Apple Podcasts doesn't. Like I want polls, and like I want it's frustrating because there's no love towards Apple Podcasts, but that's what I use because I'm not a Spotify user. And so I'm glad that they're starting, but there's a long way to go for Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it still bothers me that the Apple Podcasts and like Apple Music are on two separate apps. That's why I like Spotify.
Yeah.
Is because you can't do this on Apple, is like, if I'm doing a long car ride, but I don't want to listen to a podcast the whole time, instead of switching from Apple Music to Apple Podcasts, I can just say, let me queue up 10 songs, and then at the end of that queue, I can queue up a podcast. And then when the podcast is over, it goes right back to music.
That's smart.
Honestly,
that's awesome.
I love doing that. I like that I can queue everything together. I like that everything is in one app, and it makes my life so much easier. Also, as for adding custom thumbnails, we used to do custom thumbnails for Spotify every episode. But because it was only going out to Spotify, we stopped doing it. Because it's like, well, there's part of the audience that isn't even seeing the custom thumbnails.
And
not
it was
that
a
we're
lot
going
of
to go
work.
back to it.
No,
I
it
kind
was
of
a
like
lot
not
of work
doing
for
it.
like half the audience to see it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's Apple Podcast sucks. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I'm not going to say you're wrong because you're probably right.
I do want to touch on this really quick. Not as like a big topic, and then we can jump into our movies and Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you can't tell, we're testing out a little bit of a new format here. Just saying.
Just
for
saying.
listen.
We're
Just
trying.
saying. Just throwing that out there. We're trying something new. Anyway, in the news this week, there was a Nintendo Direct.
There was
Which
a Nintendo Direct.
Was very hype. I didn't know if you'd watched it or not because you were at camp all week, and I was like, he probably hasn't seen it.
Here's the thing. For rooming situation, we had like 50 kids and 8 adults and whatever. I was in a room. It was like me, my friend Andrew, and my brother. And what's really funny is Andrew reminds me a lot of you. Shout out to Andrew. What a legend. But I woke up at like 6 a.m. and he was in bed watching YouTube. And I was like, this is a very Nick move to just be like, well, I'm awake. And then just be like, ooh. And so he kept me updated on the Nintendo Direct stuff. And I'm pretty excited for some of the stuff. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, they revealed like the highlights for me were Super Mario RPG. Looks really cool. I definitely want to play that. It had already been revealed, but they put it in the Direct. There's a new Persona 5 Tactics game coming that I'm definitely going to play. They're porting over Luigi's Mansion 2 Dark Moon to Switch, which if you've seen my top 10 3DS video over on the Joystick Drift YouTube channel, that is in there. It is one of my favorite 3DS games, and I got so excited. This was a rough Direct for me because it was at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday.
Oof.
What also happens at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday is we have a weekly team meeting. So I was watching a live stream, like I was watching a YouTuber live react to the Direct, and as soon as the little, like, the rating thing popped up, someone walked in my office and was like, all right, time for the team meeting. And I slammed my desk. I was like, ah! So I paused it and I left my phone in there. We had the team meeting. I came back and I pressed play. I was probably the weirdest person to watch for that like 40-minute block because I was sitting there like fist pumping the air on different announcements and stuff. It was great. So there was that. They're doing a Princess Zelda and a Ganondorf amiibo for Tears of the Kingdom coming later this year.
It's exciting.
Very excited about that. And the thing that I'm probably most excited for is they're doing a new 2D Mario, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, that just looks so beautiful.
Dude.
Because it's so different from the other 2D Mario games, but it also has that same charm that made me love the 2D Mario games. And that comes out in October. And I'm very excited to play that.
Dude, I'm excited. I was wondering where they would take Mario after the Mario movie. And I was really nervous that we would get like a Mario movie game, air quote. And I'm really glad that they seem to be continuing with the 2D platformer style. And honestly, like, put some respect on Mario. Like, those games are fun. I like those games. And so I'm excited to play. I think that's going to be a good one.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a day one get for me. A lot of the other games are kind of like, oh, if I don't get a day one, that's okay. I'll get it shortly after. That is like, I'm going to pre-order it somewhere. I don't know where yet because I'm kind of edgy on GameStop right now. Me and GameStop have a tense relationship right now. Me and Target have a very tense relationship right now. And I'm not going to Walmart. So it seems like the common denominator left over is Best Buy. So I might be going to Best Buy. I don't know. I'm going to wait till it gets a little closer to pre-order. But
I went into Walmart the other day and I was like, honestly, not that bad. I was like, okay, I think I've been dramatic. Like, I don't think I'm above Walmart anymore. Like, I think I am poor enough to where I'm not above Walmart anymore. So
I'm also
good
like,
news, guys.
If I have to go in Walmart once every other month just to get more like shampoo and conditioner,
right?
Honestly, I can suck it up. I'll be fine. Because honestly, I don't go out and buy that much stuff anyway.
Right.
I don't buy groceries at Target. I buy groceries at Publix. Like, I have no need to go to Target right now. So it's been so easy to not go to Target because all the Zelda stuff came out already. So I've got nothing to buy.
Yeah.
And if like anything I would buy, like movies or manga and stuff, I just buy it at different stores.
Right.
It's been so easy to not go to Target.
And I'm not here to like boycott only horrible people go to Target type thing. It's just more like, hey, you guys are starting to like really emphasize some stuff that I don't agree with. And so I'm going to maybe shop somewhere else for a while. And a lot of people are doing that. And so it's very much of like no disrespect to anyone that goes to Target. That's just where I'm at right now. Right. And I like, the only thing is our Walmart here has had multiple stabbings in the last year. It's just so, it's a little, they also like keep attacking the mayor. Like anytime, so the mayor's family, I don't know why, anytime they're in Walmart, they get like pulled aside into custody for like, they keep trying to pin the mayor's wife for stealing stuff when she is not. And I don't know why. It's the kind of crackhead energy that makes me really not want to go there. So
our Walmart is pretty clean because it's pretty new. Will it be that way in 5 years?
Who's
Probably
to say?
not.
Who's to say?
But I don't know. I feel like the cleanliness and the quality of your Walmart says a lot about the socioeconomic area that you live in.
Yes.
Because if you live in a very like, this got really off topic.
So real, so quick.
If you live in a lower income area, obviously your Walmart's going to look worse. Whereas if you live in a higher income area, because the people who shop there take care of their stores. Yeah. So like, if you live in a higher income area, you're obviously going to shop differently than people who live in a lower income area. That's not like a dig. That's just how it is.
And you have to live up to the standards of your customer, where these super snooty rich people are going to complain if it's dirty when they're they're like feel like they're entitled to that. Like, oh, this has to be really nice store, or I'm not going to shop here. But something I saw yesterday, I want to bring this up. You were talking about GameStop. They're doing. I just saw the trailer for. I think it's called Stupid Money, which is the
way to bring
the
it back to movies. Good job.
The movie about the GameStop like stock event, which I was kind of like, that was fast.
They're really
was,
just
like,
making
year.
movies about anything now, which
Also,
honestly, go for it. Movies
TBH?
are so formulaic and cookie cutter that, like,
Right.
you know what? Yeah, sure. Make a movie about the GameStop stock. It's kind of
Why
a stupid
not?
story.
Why not?
And why not? It's not
Why
hurting
not?
anybody. Just
And
make it.
I just want to say the cast is insanely good. Like, it has Nick Offerman. It has that guy from the Batman. He was the Riddler. What is his name?
I don't know. The one who's like famous now for the Does He Know meme.
Yeah.
That's
So
his claim to fame.
Yeah, it's like Nick Offerman and Pete Davidson and that guy and the girl from Superstore. I really like her. Has Seth Rogen. And I'm like, this like looks really good. And for why? Like, this is weird. It was very fast. I'm very curious to see how that performs.
Have you seen Superstore?
I've seen 3 seasons, I think.
What is it on?
It's on Hulu.
Okay. Because I've seen, like, I'm looking for another sitcom to just kind of watch in the background, and I don't necessarily want to watch Community again yet.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can, like, if you think, is it good?
So what I'll say is me and my mom...
Is it enjoyable, I guess is a better question.
Yes. So
Okay.
me and my mom watched it for a while, and the first, I think there's, I don't know how many seasons there are, maybe 5 or 6. We watched, I think, 3 seasons. From what I've seen, after season 2, it gets less funny and like a little, because it goes a little less realistic. Where the first 2 seasons are like, oh, they work in a retail store, like it's kind of crazy and it's really funny. And then the 3rd season is like, oh, this manager and this employee don't get along, but now she's carrying his baby. And you're like, whoa, how did we get here? Like,
Whoa.
what happened? But
That accelerated quickly.
I actually highly recommend. I think you'd like it.
Okay. I'll
I
add
think
it to my
you'd
list.
like it.
I need to sign back into Hulu.
It's worth it. Do you need my Hulu password again?
No, I think I have it saved.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know. Your Hulu password is like 4731 exclamation point ampersand percentage $sign.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
That's not his actual Hulu password,
That's not
by
the
the
actual.
way.
It's just like random.
It's random.
Like it's very secure.
It's not like capital letter word number exclamation point.
No, it's so
like
random.
most people
Like,
have their passwords.
Yeah.
Does
it's
anybody
bad.
actually use, like, you know when you're going to sign in or create a new account and your browser will say use suggested password and it is just a bunch of random letters and numbers?
Who uses that? Who
uses
using
that? Because
I'm not
going to
remember
That's
that.
kind of the whole point, is that I
Yeah.
don't remember.
Yeah.
So I need to use something that I would remember. Anyway,
Anywho,
movies.
so Indiana
How many
Jones.
movies have we watched?
Oh gosh, you're right.
How many movies are you? Just you go first, because my number's
you-
going to be way higher than yours.
Do you remember what I was at last time?
You were at like 61, I think.
Okay.
And that was not including the 3 Indiana Jones movies you watched.
So I think I'm at like 62, 63.
Oh, you've only gone up 2.
It's really hard because Letterboxd can't count rewatches. And so I have to like kind of calculate, because I have mine in a list of 2023. That's my list. And you can't put the same movie in more than once.
Oh, I was like,
Yeah,
are we
you
not
can
doing lists
log
the same way?
You can log rewatches on Letterboxd, but you can't put the same movie in a list twice.
Right.
So I'm at like 62, 63. I'm going to go through and like calculate the exact number so I make sure we're accurate. But about 62, 63.
I remember
mad.
I was at, hold on, 4.
Wasn't I like 1 ahead?
Yeah, and I was down. I was at 59.
Yeah. But I was at 60.
Including rewatches.
So including rewatches, I think I'm at 63.
Yeah, I was mad because
Yeah.
if I watched one more movie, I would have been at 60.
Yeah.
So my number right now. Do you want to guess?
Scared. Oh gosh.
including rewatches.
Is it in the 70s?
Yes.
Is it 72?
No, very close though. I'm at 74. I have 26 movies to go.
That's a lot.
That's
a lot.
And I told you this before we started recording.
Yeah.
A lot of those are rewatches because like I watched the entire Iron Man trilogy at work this week. I watched Cars 2, a Goofy movie, Beauty and the Beast, like Princess and the Frog. A lot of those are rewatches. And as I was looking at, like, I'm scrolling through my list, and a lot of these are rewatches. And I'm not necessarily fond of that. And I want to watch more movies that I haven't seen. Not necessarily movies that came out this year, but just new to me movies. So I'm going to slow down with the movies I'm watching.
And watch some more, like, intentionally watch some more.
Right. Like, instead of just being like, oh, let me turn this on while I'm working, like, sit down and be like, oh, I'm going to watch Anastasia on Disney Plus or Prince of Egypt. Like, just sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to watch a movie. So the remaining 26 are going to be a lot more new to me movies. So I'm going to slow down. Because also, it's June. Where's the fun if I hit 100 by August when we hit episode 100?
Literally.
What's the fun? Then we got all this time.
I've been thinking about this. I thought once I hit 100 movies, I'm probably going to catch up on my TV for a while.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now is I'm watching, I've decided I'm going to watch anime at work instead and just kind of go through shows now. So,
because I'm
catch up on my shows.
I really want to watch some like really classic shows that I haven't seen. Like I want to watch How I Met Your Mother, and I want to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I want to watch Psych. I've never seen that. And so like all these shows that are really, really good, and I know I'm going to like them. I just haven't committed to them because I've been watching movies. So that's my plan is I'm going to get to 100 and then go catch up on some shows. So.
I can't remember. Did we say first to 100 or whoever watches the most overall?
I think we said first to 100, and then after that was overall.
Okay.
So we had like two different awards. Was first to 100 and overall.
Because I don't know, maybe my movies just tank out at 100 and I never watch another movie again. I'll be like,
no
100 movies this year.
More movies.
Whoa. Too many. So.
Okay.
Indiana Jones.
So Indiana Jones. General thoughts. We'll go by movie.
As we always do.
So give me a little bit of history of Indiana Jones with you. Like, have you seen these before? When did you watch them? What did you think then? Like, give me that story.
Okay. So Indiana Jones for me, I started watching them I think when I was 7 or 8. And I thought Indiana Jones was cool. With his like whip and the fedora and the satchel and the gun, you know, back when guns were cool.
Right.
Which I have a note about that when we get to Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh gosh.
But Raiders of the Lost Ark was, and spoiler alert, still is my favorite. I also really enjoyed Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as a kid.
Yeah.
And I can, like, watching back, I can understand why, because it was just kind of weird.
Yeah.
And we'll obviously talk about it a little more later.
Of course.
But I thought it was weird. I also vaguely remember playing Lego Indiana Jones 2, The Adventure Continues, specifically the demo version on my uncle's Xbox 360.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it's that specific. I also had this Lego Indiana Jones set that was the temple from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I still had, and it was like, it came with this plastic mold base. And the problem was I never finished the set. So all the pieces got lost. I had all the minifigures, but all the pieces got lost. So it never got finished. It was kind of like one of those weird one-off, oh no. But I still have the plastic mold and like all of the big pieces that go with it. And I just turned it into like, oh, this is the secret Ninjago temple. And like, I don't know. I just turned it into its own thing. And now that Lego Indiana Jones is back and I have money, I kind of want to go get some of the Indiana Jones sets and be like, oh, this is my second chance. There is and I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast before, but there is a picture of like 7-year-old me taking a belt, like using it like a whip and latching it onto a ceiling fan. And like my mom captured the picture at the perfect moment because it was when she opened the door and I was about to swing, like jump off the bed and swing, which would have resulted in pulling the ceiling fan out of the ceiling. But I was about to swing around and she was like, click picture.
Click.
No. No more Indiana Jones for you. I also really loved the show at Hollywood Studios.
Yeah.
Which, shout out to the one time we recorded an episode right behind it.
Oh my god.
That bonus
Dude,
episode.
I forgot about that.
It was great.
We found one spot next to, what's the restaurant called?
The Backlot.
The Backlot.
The best restaurant at Hollywood Studios.
We sat in the very back of the back lot, and the stunt show started. So there's like explosions in the back, and we were like, "Yeah, what a good day at Hollywood Studios." Anyway,
and then you hear the music, and we're like, "Please don't copyright us. We have nowhere else to sit." So yeah, and I would run around like with my little fedora on and my satchel, and in the satchel I had this plastic gun that was bright neon green. So nobody thought it was a real revolver.
Yeah.
And honestly, as a kid, I was like, yeah, Indiana Jones would have a neon green gun.
Why not?
That makes sense to me.
Who's going to tell me otherwise?
That's kind of my history with Indiana Jones. What about you? What's your backstory? What's the Jackson lore with Indiana Jones?
The Jackson lore is pretty deep. So I was born on a cold December night. I'll fast forward a little bit though. I really wanted to watch Indiana Jones as a kid because everyone I know had seen it. When I was like 10, I knew a ton of people that had seen it, but I wasn't allowed to because that movie is terrifying. Raiders of the Lost Ark is part of the reason PG-13 as a rating exists, because it was rated PG and parents got upset and they were like, "Hey, this is too much for PG." But they were like, "Well, what are we like? It's not enough for R." And so Steven Spielberg created PG-13 for movies like Indiana Jones and Gremlins and Jaws. So that's a little film history for you. But 10-year-old me really wanted to watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. So much so that for 4 years, every Christmas, I got my dad a DVD copy of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was the same DVD. I rewrapped it every year, and I thought I was so funny and being like, we need to watch this. And eventually I actually did watch it with him and thought that was really good. I really liked Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I also didn't really have a desire to watch the other ones. I didn't really care. So Raiders of the Lost Ark, I've seen it 2 or 3 times, but before this last week, I had never seen the other ones. Like Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, Crystal Skull, like I'd never seen them. So this is super
never
fresh.
seen them?
Never in my life. Up before we watched it for this podcast, I had never seen them. Because Raiders of the Lost Ark was like, okay, I'm good. I was like, that was really good. And then I just went on my merry way. I didn't even consider that there were more. So I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark. One time I did fall asleep while watching it, and I was woken up to the horrifying scene of their faces being melted off. I was on vacation, like in the mountains, and I'd fallen asleep. I was like 15. Fallen asleep, and I woke up, and they were just like getting melted. I was like, oh my gosh. So that's pretty much my entire history. I love the Lego games so much. Even though I didn't watch the movies, the Lego Indiana Jones for the Xbox 360, 100%.
Port them to Switch, you cowards. Do it.
Dude, watching the movies, I would just kept pointing them out to Amy. I said, look, that's the level from the game where this happened. And I was like, oh, that's the staircase that I could never get up on in the game. Because I'd never seen them. I just played the game. So that's my history. Nothing insane. I also really like the stunt show. And I really hope that the new Indiana Jones will get them to not only keep it, but maybe update it a little bit. That's my hope.
What, with a 90-year-old man playing Indiana Jones? And being like, I'm too old for this. Yeah, Harrison Ford, you are too old for this. Thank you for pointing out the obvious.
I'm just saying, the stunt show is fun, but now that I've already seen it like 3 times, near the end, I'm like, all right, I'd like to be on Rock and Roller Coaster. If we could like wrap this up.
Can we wrap this up? I need to go get on Tower of Terror.
Yeah. So Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first Indiana Jones movie. I would argue the best Indiana Jones
I was
movie.
going to say, can we just go ahead and say, spoiler alert, this is the best one?
Right.
Like, they peaked with the
is.
first one. They should not have made any more.
We'll get into the other ones in a minute because they're not bad. But I will say the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie is very clearly in my brain the best one.
Yeah,
So,
I watched it and I was like, man, this is really good. Like, it's a classic. And watching the other three, I was like, these just did not hit the same levels of hype or levels of just enjoyability as the first one. The only one that came close was Temple of Doom. And the only reason Temple of Doom got close was because Short Round was in it. Him and
so
Indy's
true.
relationship is the best part of that entire movie.
Dude,
I would argue
that's
it's
so
the only
true.
good part of that entire movie.
which I have a lot to say about Temple of Doom.
I also have a lot to say about Temple of Doom. But
we'll get there in a second.
oh, my point I wanted to make about guns in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I wrote this down. I said, I miss old-timey gun sound effects.
Oh my gosh, me
And
too.
it was so present in this movie where it's just like, pew, bang, poo. And you're like,
because they did it
man,
on set. It was practical.
I miss that. I miss.
Yeah.
Now they sound too realistic. Like they sound like they would sound in real life. Nah, give me the pew. I want to hear it ricochet off a piece of metal. That's what I want.
That's the thing is it was so practical. Like you would shoot it and then like they had like smoke pops. Like that's not added in on the computer after. That's practical like effects of like the steam, the smoke and stuff coming out. And that is what I'll say about pretty much all of these movies. Pretty much.
Except for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is an exception, but the practicality of the sets sells the movie so well because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm in this jungle, but it's obviously a real jungle, or I'm in this temple and it's obviously real. Like there's nothing in my brain that says that this isn't real. And I think that alone sells these movies so well. And just being like, that opening scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark with the boulder, it looks real. Like, it's not fake. And that's what a lot of these movies these days, like, I sound like an old man now, but, like, that's what movies are missing now is the practicality that sells you on the weight of it. So, that's what I'll say, is Raiders of the Lost Ark looked real. It looks real.
Yeah, and speaking of things that look real, because they are real, this was a common trend in all the movies. Why so many snakes? I'm just curious. Who on set was like, yes, I have a snake fetish, and it has to be in every movie? Like, you know how we make fun of Quentin Tarantino for being into feet? Like, is snakes Steven Spielberg's equivalent? Is like, I love seeing people get weirded out by snakes.
I gotta put snakes in the movie.
Why?
What the heck?
Also, did you know in Raiders of the Lost Ark they had to put glass between Harrison Ford and the snakes because Harrison Ford also doesn't like snakes?
Well, who does? Does?
They put a physical glass barrier between him and those snakes. And I was like, bro, you could put a physical glass barrier down. I still would not get in there. CGI those snakes. I'm not looking at a real one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I thought that was weird. I understand because the point is like, that's his weakness. His one weakness is snakes. But near the end of the near the end of the movies, they started to turn into a joke to the point where I was like, there is no reason snakes should be here. You just wanted it to be funny because he's scared. Like,
right. Like in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull when they're trying to pull him out of the thing and they're like, grab the snake. And he's like, don't call it a snake.
Don't call it a snake. You're like, oh,
you could have found a vine. You're in a jungle. You could have found a branch. You didn't have to get a snake. You got a snake because, Indiana Jones doesn't like snakes.
Yeah.
How much you want to bet? I'll bet $10. there's some kind of really bad snake joke in the new Indiana Jones. There has to be.
Sucker bet. That's a sucker bet. I'm not taking that. It's got to be in there.
No, it's like kind of, it's a staple, and I get it because, like you said, it is his one weakness. It's the one thing that can cripple the great Indiana Jones. But also, it's kind of like, I get it. Like, snakes are gross.
Yeah, snakes are
Nobody
the worst.
likes snakes. If you like snakes, that's...
Right.
I'm sorry. That says a lot about you. If you like snakes.
If you're not afraid of snakes, how are you not afraid of snakes? Like, that's what I'm saying.
I've never had more of a physical repulsion to anything other than snakes. Like, really tangential. But my mom, sister, and I went to the zoo one day. And we did everything. It was great. But we had to go to the bathroom. Now, the zoo, for some kind of cruel joke, thought it'd be funny to put one of the only bathrooms in the zoo in the reptile exhibit.
That's awesome.
Where there are snakes. You have to walk past snakes to get to the bathroom. So it's kind of like a test of courage. Are you courageous enough to walk past the snakes? Except for the part where we walked the whole thing, missed the bathroom, and had to go back. So, like, half of it was snakes, half of it was, like, turtles and frogs and all kinds of other stuff. You have to walk past the snakes to get to the bathroom. So I get in the bathroom, and I'm going to the bathroom, and I'm standing there like, this is the part in the horror movie where the snake starts coming out of the ceiling.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it is.
Because it was a very dimly lit bathroom, not very well. I was like, this is a scene from a horror movie. But as I'm walking out,
funny.
like, I was kind of walking out with my head down and, like, tunnel vision and just kind of speed walking through because I don't like snakes.
Mm-hmm.
I caught one out of the corner of my eye, and it was, like, moving and flipping around, and I genuinely had, like, an out-of-body experience.
You were just like...
Like, my soul left my body. I was like, nope,
we're good.
I went outside. I was
here.
like, no, I can't do it. I hate snakes.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Everyone hates snakes, so it's, like, kind of a weird fear. I remember, this is another piece of Indiana Jones lore, is I love the VeggieTales version of Indiana Jones so much.
Minnesota
Cuke. Icon. Both of them are so good. And he's afraid of worms. And I think that's really funny. He's like, oh,
worms are better. Worms are more palatable.
Always have to be worms. It's so funny. But
worms are more palatable because they're also gross,
yeah,
but they're not snakes.
They're not venomous. Like, they're just gross. Well, they're just gross.
How do we know?
Looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score for all these movies, Raiders of the Lost Ark is the highest rated critics and audience.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Has a 93 critics, 96 audience, while all of the other ones are rated fresh, except Kingdom of the Crystal Skull has a very low audience score, which honestly, I kind of understand, like, because objectively, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull it's okay. It's not that bad. Like, but we will get there. Raiders of the Lost Ark, I also think that it's worth pointing out that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull has very Christian messaging in it. It's very, like, you can watch Raiders of the Lost Ark and say, what did Indiana Jones actually do? Because really all he did was lead them to the Ark. But it was, like, God that, like, protected Indiana Jones. And, like essentially, what did Indiana Jones do? If you think about it.
Like, he didn't really do anything bad.
No.
And okay, I'm going to address the elephant in the room here. Nazis are the bad guys. What? 2 out of the 4 movies?
Yeah.
Because it's Russians in the last one, and then it's the weird cult stuff in the second one.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
I really appreciated, like, I thought it was really interesting how the Nazis were handled, because they were just bad guys. Yeah. They weren't like, oh, I can sympathize with what they're doing. Like, no, they're bad guys, especially when this movie came out. Yeah. That was, and honestly still is, the perception of Nazis, is what they were doing is bad. There is no redeemable quality. And even the archaeologist guy who worked with them could acknowledge that the Nazis were bad, but he was still like, you know what? they're paying me money, so I guess it's okay. Like, I'm just going to
Yeah.
turn a blind eye to it, which is not what you should do, by the way. So I did think it was really interesting that the Nazis were going after a Christian/Jewish relic, when in reality, like, that's like they kind of wanted to do the whole "we're going to use your own power against you." I'm also like, this shows that you like have read too much into the folklore of what the Ark of the Covenant is, and you don't really understand how it works. Like, did the Nazis really think that God was going to be like, yes, I will give you the full power of the Ark of the Covenant to wipe out my people?
Right.
Yep.
Just take it.
Sure.
Just take it.
Like, I mean, I get it.
Right.
It's like, oh, the Nazis are bad. Here, what can
Right.
we do to make the Nazis bad? But still, they got everything they deserved when they opened it up and their faces melted
truly.
off. It was dark. It was weird. But also, that's what happened. They tell you at the beginning of the movie, like, they go through all these examples of people who had touched the Ark or who had encountered it, and they were struck down immediately.
Yeah.
That's what happened, was they were struck down because they had the malintent to disrespect the Ark and disrespect, you know, God and the religion that goes with it, which is kind of why Indiana Jones gets a pass, because he wasn't trying to use the Ark. He was trying to protect it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could argue if he really wanted to protect it, he should have just left it where it was,
Right.
instead of trying to find it. Just leave it where it was, because it was clearly buried for a reason.
Right.
So,
But it's
I don't
also really interesting, the Indiana Jones and the dynamic of his beliefs, because he doesn't buy into any of the spiritual side of any of these movies. He doesn't believe any of it. So he's very, what's the word? He's very book smart. He's very
he's practical.
He's very practical. He's very educated. And so he doesn't believe any of that. He just wants the treasure to preserve it. And so it's this very interesting, crossroads of like, oh, he did the good thing, but like, did he? Like, did he though? Like, he doesn't believe any of that, and he doesn't buy into any of the magical or spiritual side of the stuff he does.
Which,
so,
I don't know how you don't, after you watch an entire group of Nazis.
Yeah.
To be fair, his eyes were closed, so he didn't know their
Right.
faces got melted off. All he knows is that he closed their eyes when they opened the Ark.
Yeah.
And then when he opened them, all the Nazis were gone.
Yeah, they melted.
So
I don't know.
And
I
it
don't know.
seemed like in that moment, him and Marion were very terrified.
Oh, of course.
Which, to be fair, if
would
you
too.
kind of dig into the theological aspect of like what would be coming out of the Ark to defend it, other than like angels. And every time an angel shows up in the Bible, he's like, do not be afraid.
Yeah.
And if you've seen biblically accurate angels, you get it.
Yeah.
They're kind of scary looking.
Yeah.
So
It's like, don't be afraid of my 25 eyes. You're like, whoa.
and my 3 sets of wings. Rah!
Don't be afraid.
But if you think about that in the context of him and Marion absolutely felt that presence there.
Oh, yeah.
And know that's what took the Nazis away. So I don't know how you go through that and then even like get to the third movie where he's like, this is all a bunch of hokey. Like, okay, you watched the Ark of the Covenant get rid of a bunch of Nazis, and you just watched this weird cult guy steal hearts.
Yeah.
And you're still gonna tell me there's like none of this is real?
Yeah.
That was a weird like character development thing. That didn't make sense. But other than that,
I wasn't about
it was
that. I want to talk about the Temple of Doom a little bit.
Okay,
because,
before we do Temple of Doom,
I
want to talk about Indy and Marion are the best.
She's
I don't
the
wanna say
best
the
female
best-
sidekick.
Yes. I'm not going to say they're the best duo. I think the best duo goes to Indy and Short Round by a mile.
A mile.
But the best like Indy female pair is him and Marion.
Yes.
The other two don't even compare. Not even close.
They don't compare. Even like I really love Sean Connery. Even his dad, like, I still like Marion better than his dad. Like, she is the best counterpart to balance their personalities, balance the best out of all these movies.
Because she's very much like Elizabeth from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Where she's just a really well-written female character.
Yeah.
She still has those feminine aspects, but she also isn't a pushover who's, oh, I'm the damsel in distress all the time.
Yeah.
Marion did a lot of stuff in Raiders of the Lost Ark and then later in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And just to go from Marion being so great and awesome in Raiders of the Lost Ark to Willie Scott, who actively made me want to turn off the movie because she was just so bad.
She was dumb. She was
She was the stereotypical stupid, dumb, blonde woman who's afraid of everything, is, oh, I chipped a nail. My life is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to scream at every single animal that's outside. Oh, I don't like this. It's dirty and muggy. It's just annoying.
It's so frustrating. I hate her. So
can't stand her. There were so many moments where, like, I didn't even feel bad when they were going to lower her down into the lava and kill her. I'm like, okay,
let her go.
I'm fine with that. And then he somehow falls in love with her throughout the movie.
Yeah, I feel like Indiana Jones is a big womanizer, which is kind of...
It's a product of the time.
It's a product of the time, and it's a very common theme in those adventure movies of, like, come on, toots, let's go. Like, they swing together type. Like, Star Wars does that. Indiana Jones. Like, I'm not going to get pissed and be like, oh my gosh, like, this is so terrible for women and whatever. I really don't know. I'm not in a position to comment on that. I just want to say that the Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones didn't feel charming. He felt weird. Like, it felt weird. It felt like... I can't say that. It feels very... Like,
There's a lot of scenes where he's really pushy.
Yeah, he's very pushy.
And they play it up as like this, oh, it's romantic, like they're falling in love. It's like,
he was very, almost like abusive, like very...
Yeah, it's like, that's, in today's culture, that's borderline assault. Yeah. Like, that's not romantic, that's weird. Yeah. Don't do that.
No. So, and there's like...
Do not let Indiana Jones be your role model for how to interact with women,
because
is what I'm saying.
He was, like, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, he was very, like, cool, like, arch eyebrow, like, hero guy. But he also, like, I feel like he had a lot of respect for Marion. And, like, they were good counterparts because they were, like, a team. Which we find out later in the Crystal Skull, it's because they were, like, actually in love. But, like, in the Temple of Doom, he treats her horribly. And there's the whole scene where they're, like... It's back and forth if they're going to sleep together, and it's like this weird tension that's like it doesn't really have a place in the movie, I didn't think. And it was like, it's kind of like James Bond in the sense of like...
Thank you. I was about to make that comparison.
Yes. It's like James Bond in the sense of like, James Bond is a womanizer. He's like the cool guy that gets the girls. But I never felt like at least Daniel Craig James Bond, I don't ever felt like he forced himself on women. Right. I never thought that. And I never thought that there was a woman in one of those Daniel Craig movies that was like, it's weird. Willie Scott is a weird character, and I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, it's just not handled very well.
No, I don't feel like there's another movie. Willie Scott feels taken advantage of, in my opinion.
Yes. And it's like I said earlier, it's a product of the time. Yeah. And it wasn't right then, it's not right now. But back then, that was like socially acceptable. Yeah. Whether or not we think it's okay, it was socially acceptable. And now it does definitely feel dated. Yeah. Because, like, we're sitting here right now, like, oh, that made me uncomfortable. Because that's just not how you should treat women in general. No. And that aspect of Indiana Jones felt very played up in 2 and 3, but then not in 1 and 4 when Marion was present. Right. And I don't understand, like, these movies would have been radically different if they just let Marion be the counterpart for all 4 movies.
Right. I agree.
And I think it would have, like... You still could have had that back and forth. You still could have had like that romantic tension. That's what they were trying to do. Yeah. Is play on that romantic tension. But it doesn't work when like for lack of a better word, for those who understand the reference I'm trying to make here, when Willie Scott is a tsundere, right? Where she's like, oh, I hate you, but I actually love you. Like, no, it's a trope in anime where girls are like, I hate you. You're the worst. I think you're stupid. And then behind your back, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm actually so in love with him. He's the best. Like, it's that trope.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do that, then do that. That's fine. That is like something that happens in real life. But don't have the back and forth where they're like, well, you're going to come sleep with me because I have that effect on women. And she's like, ugh, how could you say that?
But
you're going to come sleep with me because I'm the best thing that's ever happened to you. And I'm like, okay, we did not need this.
Yeah. Like, and they like both want to, but both have too much pride to like say that they want each other. And it's bad. If Short Round was not in that movie, I feel like that movie would tank. He kind of saves the movie. It would be
such a skippable movie if he
saves the movie. And I'm really glad that he's back into acting, and he deserved the Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once wholeheartedly. I'm so glad he's back. He is good in Temple of Doom. He's so funny. He is a great character. He's useful. I really wish there was more of him in Indiana Jones, but I also understand that like they kind of have to segment the movies and it's different characters and like a different situation every time.
The movies are all supposed to be standalone.
Yeah.
But sequels to each other. And I get that's why they get rid of characters. And even then, like when Marion comes back in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, they don't really talk about what him and her did in Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know she's a returning character because the franchise is just that old at that point. Mm-hmm. But also, like,
Yeah. We watched Temple of Doom, and I was like, I feel like Temple of Doom is my least favorite of these movies. And you can come attack me, whatever. I don't like it. Temple of Doom, the weird spiritual culty stuff and Willie Scott are the two things that I did not like about that movie. But it's also a crossroads because I appreciate that they touched on it. I feel like they weren't afraid to go there, but I also it made it a not enjoyable movie for me because it was like this super serious life and death, like ripping your heart out, super culty, weird spiritual, mixed with this like really slapsticky action of like jumping off a mountain and like, oh my gosh, we're on the rope bridge, and like I even wrote in my notes,
or like jumping out of a plane with a raft and then hoping that the raft inflates by the time you hit the ground,
and you're like,
which would kill you, by the way.
It would kill you.
Think that's
kill you. That's not possible. I wrote in my notes, I said two things. I said the writers were probably giggling really hard when they wrote this, because I just pictured like these middle school boys like and then and I also wrote,
and then Indiana Jones is going to force himself onto the woman because it's funny.
And then I also wrote, I said this movie watches like an Air Buddies movie. Like I feel like I could watch Treasure Buddies and have a similar experience to watching Temple of Doom.
You're not wrong.
That is what I'm going to say, and you can attack me, you can fight me, the DMs are open, I don't care. That is how I feel. I did not enjoy watching the movie, even though I really appreciate the giant set pieces. It looked incredible. It was directed incredibly well. Actors did a great job. A lot of the characters were really fun and funny, and I really love the end with the minecart chase scene. That is so fun. And I really love the justice of the movie of like, yeah, these are bad guys and they had child slaves and they get what's coming to them. Like, that's awful. I really appreciate that stuff. But the other stuff is hard to look past, and it makes it not as enjoyable of a movie for me, even though I appreciate the quality of the movie.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I'm gonna come in defense of two aspects here.
Okay.
One being, my favorite part of the movie was everything with Short Round. My favorite scene in the movie is the scene where him and Indy are sitting at the campfire playing poker.
Yes.
Their interaction back and forth what I was laughing hysterically because it was just like, it was that snappy, witty dialogue of them going back and forth, undercut by Willie running around and screaming. Like, they just weren't paying mind to her at all. And I think that made the scene even better.
Yeah.
Not her running around, but the fact that they were ignoring her, because we can all acknowledge that she's being a little ridiculous.
Right.
Now, and I wrote this down in my notes, I want to, because some people say, like, oh, all the cult stuff is weird. Like, why would they put that in there? I think, especially now, more so than when the movie came out, I think it's very important to look at things like that and acknowledge that these are real things that happen in real life. There are cults out there who believe in religions that aren't Christianity. There are cults out there who do drink blood and eat snakes and like all this weird stuff that we just kind of look at and like, oh, that's weird. Like, don't do that. Yeah. But like, that is a very real thing. And like, yeah, having child slaves, that's bad. Regardless of whether or not you're in a cult, slavery is bad. Yeah. Like, across the board, that's bad. But these movies, and I'm not going to speak for the fifth one because we haven't seen it, but I feel like this is something they're going to do, is these movies never shied away from making the bad guys bad.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what I was saying about the Nazis, is there's nothing redeemable about them. They're just bad because they're the Nazis. The Nazis are bad. And this cult, like, everything this cult is doing, you look at it and you're like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, you're eating snakes. You have child slaves. You're drinking blood. Like, that's gross. That's weird. That's bad, and it's evil. And it's portrayed as nothing but that. And I think movies nowadays get so caught up in, well, the bad guy needs to be relatable. Like, he needs to have a reason as to why he's bad. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if you want to give a little sympathy and relatability to your villain, that's fine. Not every villain needs to be that way, though.
Right.
Let there be some villains who are just evil for the sake of being evil because they're a bad person. Having every villain have some kind of like, aw, he was slighted in this way, and now he needs to get revenge. Like, okay, that's fine. But if every villain is like that, then they're not really, then like, it's like the quote from Incredibles. Like, if everyone is super, then no one is. Like, you're not different if everyone's the same. So I do respect that. I like that. I think the cult stuff is weird.
It's so weird, but it's also portrayed as nothing but weird.
Right. It's not like, well, look at this cult. Like, yeah, we'll just let them do whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
they were like, no, this is weird. I do appreciate that. While it like was hard to watch, they also portrayed it as nothing but, this is really weird.
Right.
And so that was good. As far as The Last Crusade goes,
I don't have much to say.
Honestly, tell you, I don't remember most of it. And it's
I remember,
not at the expense of the movie, but I don't remember a lot of it. And I watched it 2 weeks ago.
All I remember about Last Crusade, this is the first time I'd ever seen it like in its entirety. I had known about it, but I hadn't seen it in its entirety.
Yeah.
All I know is that Indiana Jones inappropriately hits on another blonde white girl. He forces himself on another blonde white girl, is looking for another Christian relic.
Yeah.
And is fighting the Nazis. Again, it really feels like the first three Indiana Jones movies feels like the Cars trilogy, where the first one was really good, and then they tried to do something different with the second one, and people didn't like it, so they went back to the formula for the third one.
Yeah, that
they're like,
that makes sense. I
like
get that.
Nazis, Christian relic, the hot female side character. That was the only part they didn't really accurately bring back.
I will say, one, I really like Sean Connery in the movie. He's very good. But it's Sean Connery. He's good in everything.
Right.
He was really good. I really liked the pacing of Last Crusade. I thought it was very refreshing compared to Temple of Doom, because Temple of Doom was like, booyah, inciting incident. And The Last Crusade was like, all right, here's some backstory. Here's a flashback, a little Indiana Jones childhood lore. All right, and we're back up. We introduce his dad. He's in the classroom. Like, oh no, his dad is missing, this and that. Like, it eased into it so much better than Temple of Doom did.
I was going to say, it felt like it took a while for Temple of Doom to get somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it took an incredibly long amount of time to get to the point in Temple of Doom.
Well, because that is what was annoying about Temple of Doom, is it took a long time to get there, but it wasn't like nothing was happening. It was a lot of the stuff was happening, but that wasn't the point. It didn't get until the actual point until like halfway through.
And I feel like that's something that hurts the movie on rewatching it and knowing what happens. I think if you don't know, then yes, it's all interesting and it's all entertaining. But if you've seen it already, you're like, oh, can we just get to the heart-stealing people?
Right.
Like, why am I here?
Yeah. And so I'd also like to point out these movies, all of the Indiana Jones movies are pretty consistently like 2 hours. They're like 2 hours, 2 hours, 4 minutes, 2 hours, 8 minutes. Like they're very consistent in their length.
Got that down to a T.
Which is very interesting. Also, some good stuff from The Last Crusade. That scene where they think that Indy dies and then he just shows up behind them. Like, what are we looking at? That is the funniest thing I've ever seen. I was cackling. That was like so out of character for the Indiana Jones movies because it was like, it was a joke. It was played up to be a joke, which is kind of like they're funny, but they're not like, this is a joke. That was funny. I liked that. I also really like the end of The Last Crusade where he's like, oh, I can get it. Like, I can do it. And then he's just like, Indy, let go. And I was just like, dude, that gave me chills. That was good.
Yeah. This is not my favorite part of the movie, but the part where I laughed the most uncontrollably was purely because it caught me off guard and I didn't know it was in the movie. But like, they're going to get the journal because the journal has all the stuff in it.
Right.
And they go to like this Nazi thing and they're burning all the books. And you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Wait a minute. Is that Adolf Hitler? And he's just sitting there? And I was like, that's weird. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, and then I kind of brushed it off. And then 5 minutes later, there's a scene where Hitler gets like, it's a close up and he's like right there with Indiana Jones. And then he signs the journal and hands it back to him. And I'm like,
why is Hitler here?
First of all, why is Hitler here? This feels really weird. Like, this didn't need to be here. But also, you could not get away with that in a movie today.
No.
And I think that's the funniest part, is you could not, like, yes, they did it in Jojo Rabbit, but that was purely comedic.
Oh,
like,
right.
this was supposed to be portrayed as serious, like, the Adolf Hitler is in this movie.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you can't do that.
It's so weird.
You can't.
It's so funny. Yeah.
Other than that,
I don't have a lot to say about Last Crusade.
I don't have a lot to say about it either.
Good.
I didn't really like it. It's my least favorite.
Really?
I would watch Temple of Doom before I'd watch Last Crusade.
Really?
Yeah. As much as I don't like Willie. I didn't like the girl in this movie either because she turns out to be like a Nazi double agent.
Yeah. That's
and
a pretty consistent
that was kind of dumb.
That's a pretty consistent theme in the Indiana Jones movies. Last Crusade, I thought it was good. It's kind of like it was good. Shrug. Okay, cool.
All right. Can I get it? Okay. I'm about to lay down my hottest take. I think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is the best one aside from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
No.
I'll die on this hill. I'd watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull before the other two.
I would watch The Last Crusade or the Raiders. So it goes, for me, best is Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then The Last Crusade, and then Crystal Skull, and then Temple of Doom. And I'm curious to see where Dial of Destiny lands in that, because it's the lowest.
Freaking last.
It's the lowest critic score. It's at 61 right now for critic score, where the rest of them are either, like, even Crystal Skull is 77.
See, the thing is, I can't just say the movie's going to be bad because the critics say it's bad, because they've been wrong on multiple accounts this year alone. Like, they were wrong about the Mario movie, and they were wrong about Transformers. Like, critics are just kind of wrong nowadays, so I can't even just say, oh, the critics think it's a bad, dumb movie,
it'll be bad.
and I won't go see it.
Yeah.
Like, because they've been wrong. Especially Rotten Tomatoes critics.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Those same critics were like, The Flash is great. And I'm like, okay.
I've heard,
Who
I've
paid
heard
you
so
to
many
say
mixed reviews on The Flash, and I'm not going to see it because I'm not invested. I don't care, but...
I'll wait till they add it to Max.
Ew.
In like
not
6
Max.
months.
Yeah, Crystal Skull, I was really ready for the worst movie of my life, the way that people talked about it.
It's not.
And I was like, I was watching it like, this is kind of enjoyable. Like,
It's not that bad.
I don't know. Like, also,
everyone dunks on it because they don't like Shia LaBeouf, and I'm like, Shia LaBeouf's one of the better parts of the movie.
That's so true. Yeah, Shia LaBeouf is hilarious in that movie because he's like, oh yeah, my mom's just PO'd because I dropped out of school. What does she know? And I like laughed out loud. I was like, dude, it's like,
I love when they're sitting at the table,
funny.
And the guys pull up. And he like whips out the knife, and Indy's like, I think you just brought a knife to a gunfight, and they're pulling the guns out of their jacket. I'm like, that's something I would do.
So
like, I'd whip out the knife and be like, all right, let's go. And then they pull out a gun, and I'm like, whoa,
hold up. Is knife to a gunfight from Indiana Jones?
No.
Surely
it's not.
That's been a thing for a while, hasn't it?
I'm gonna look it up.
Because when they said it,
surely that did not originate with Indiana.
I'm pretty sure he said that in Raiders of the Lost Ark too.
Well, don't forget. Don't forget that scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark where the guy's swinging the sword around and then he just shoots him.
Yes,
I love that.
Yes, I really.
Okay.
Yeah.
According to searches at Subzin, The Untouchables was the first film with this line, but it has been emulated in at least 20 other films since 2000.
Okay.
The Untouchables, 1987, 1 hour, 23 minutes, 23 seconds, brings a knife to a gunfight.
Okay.
So no, it is not the first movie to do that.
So no. I also really love when he gets in the plane and just shreds the guy with the propeller. Like, it's that kind of fun adventure that I really like from these movies.
Yeah, it's one of those things you got to turn your brain off and just enjoy it.
Because it's fun adventure. What else do you want? Like, come on.
It's dumb, okay?
Yeah.
It's the Russians want an alien skull.
Yeah.
So they can get mind control powers.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's just stupid. And I'm okay with that. And everyone's like, why'd they have to go with aliens for this movie? What else are they supposed to do?
What
else is there for them to do?
You also have to look at, they went with the folklore of the time in all these movies. And in the 50s, aliens, Area 51, and like nuclear bomb testing.
They're
and
literally
Russians,
in Area 51 at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, like that's what was the buzz. That was the folklore of the time. And it might go a little too far at the end. I don't know.
I don't think it does.
I also think like if you saw Temple of Doom and were okay with that, how are you not okay with Crystal Skull? Like,
yeah, you can't have both. You can't be okay with the weird heart-stealing cult and not okay with telepathic the aliens.
Right. I also
let it go.
I would also say that I don't like the villain in Crystal Skull.
Oh, yeah.
I think the Russian lady with the Edna Mode haircut was so corny, and it was unrealistic. It felt corny. It almost felt like a joke. Like she was a joke. Like
it's like it was a play at the Russian stereotype, is what it was.
Right.
Everyone in that movie was a Russian stereotype.
And like them going into the warehouse, and like he throws up the gunpowder so the magnets go to the. Okay, whatever. Like I got up and made a snack during that part.
I'm also gonna say, Harrison Ford looks old in this movie.
He looks old,
and it came out in 2008.
So we're like 20.
That was 15
22
years ago.
I'm so dumb. You're right. 15 years ago. How is he gonna do Dial of Destiny?
And he was old in that movie.
Yeah.
And now they got him back doing another one. Isn't he like 85?
He is 80.
Man.
He is 80 years old.
He was 65?
Yeah. He is 80 years old.
65, that's passable. 80?
Yeah.
Harrison Ford, just retire. Just call it a day. You don't need
'Cause
to you've made your money. Just let it go.
I like Harrison Ford, but recently I felt like he's been really grumpy, and it makes it hard to like him for me.
He's a grumpy old man.
Yeah.
Of course
like
he's grumpy.
I really didn't like when he was complaining about the Star Wars stuff, where he was like, "Yeah, I just wanted them to kill Han Solo." I'm like, then why did you go back? Like you didn't.
You could have just
need
said
the
no.
check. Like
you
could've
weren't.
just said no.
You weren't still contractually obligated to anything Star Wars.
Yeah.
You could have said no.
Yeah, I just got
And he was
annoyed
like,
when he.
I wanted to do it so they could kill him off and then never do anything with him again. Okay, they made Solo a Star Wars story. They didn't need you for that.
Yeah, right.
Like,
and you. That's the other
killing
thing
him
is I
off did
think-
nothing other than make the fans sad for 10 minutes and then angry for the other 5 years.
Yeah, Harrison Ford is a good actor, especially in his prime. He was a great actor, and I still think he does good work. But sometimes I feel like he's so up his own butt that it's hard to like him. Where he's like, "Yeah, they can't make an Indiana Jones movie without me," and I was like, They might." Because
They're probably going to when you die.
well,
Although,
they also,
I don't know. With AI, now they can. If they own his likeness,
Yeah.
if he sold that away, they can just
Well,
make a movie without him.
They also, I feel like they really wanted to do a reboot with Shia LaBeouf. I feel like they really
And then
wanted
Shia LaBeouf
to.
got in the Transformers money and went really weird. And
Yeah.
nobody wanted to touch him for the longest
And then he
time.
went to
And
prison
people
for a
still kinda
while. You know, he went to jail for a while, and then I feel like not a lot of people want to work with Shia LaBeouf right now.
He had a
but that's
real
whole nother
Disney
thing.
Channel kid character
Oh,
arc,
absolutely.
where he got
Absolutely.
really weirdly involved with drugs and stuff, and then went to prison, and now he's like a different person.
Yeah, no one wants
Which
to hire him
good for him
anymore.
if he turned his life around. Like that's what
right,
you should do.
Right, absolutely.
But also,
But
I don't know.
they really wanted to do a reboot with Shia LaBeouf.
I
could
think he
tell.
could have been a very interesting character to
They
do a
could've.
reboot with.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually don't like the he's your son type arcs. I thought that one worked. I really did. I liked Shia LaBeouf in that movie, and that movie, like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, looks like it was made in 2008, and that's the problem. Is it really looks like a 2008 movie, and I feel like he deserved a little more credit. He did good in that movie. His character was funny. He was exaggerated, and that was the point. He was just this punk, slick back hair kid, and that wanted to ride his
Very
motorcycle.
50s.
Very 50s. Very, like, it worked. I thought it worked, and I liked him. And I would have watched a reboot with him. I would have. But now I'm really afraid they're going to use Phoebe Waller-Bridge as the new
No,
Indiana
Kathleen
Jones.
Kennedy said they're thinking about it.
Which, like,
And I said,
that was...
how out of touch do you have to be to see the initial reaction to this character and say, yeah, we might do a spinoff with that? No,
Yeah.
you
No.
don't.
Don't!
If the fans don't like her, then don't do it. Don't be like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, let's double down on that. No,
Yeah.
don't.
Well, I will say, after watching Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it said executive producer Kathleen Kennedy. And as we were watching the movie, I thought, I 1,000% believe that Kathleen Kennedy worked on this movie. I wholeheartedly believe that she worked on this movie because I can tell that this has like Rise of Skywalker energy. So,
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Is like she wasn't really involved in the other three.
yeah.
And then this one, you're like, oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I can see
I can
Kathleen
tell.
Kennedy had an
I can
influence
tell.
on this because it's bad. But also, it's bad, but I can enjoy it bad.
right.
Because like you said, the CGI is very 2008. It's very like, it's still new to us, but we haven't, like, we're filming on film still, but we're using CGI because George Lucas used a lot of CGI 3 years ago in Revenge of the
Yeah.
Sith, and it looked really good. So now we're going to use it here, but it's this
Yeah.
weird in between, and you can tell they saved the entire CGI budget for the aliens at the end, and everything just kind of looked weird.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I enjoyed Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think it was great that they brought Marion back and they kind of
agree.
rekindled that relationship, and then they got married at the end, only for them to undo it and then get divorced between 4 and 5 because
Okay.
God forbid they do anything good.
Here's the thing. Why?
Why? He's not going to have a new love interest in the 5th movie. Just let him be married.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I really need to go see Dial of Destiny, because what does the timeline look like? Are we pretending Kingdom of the Crystal Skull doesn't exist? Are we saying,
I'm pretty
oh,
sure
she
the Nazis
died,
are
or
back
they got
again.
divorced, or are we like doing Nazis again? Like, is he here to fight like Republicans? Like, what's up? Like, what are we doing here? Like, oh,
I mean, I don't know. It's a 2023 movie. We don't know nowadays.
I feel like I'm pretty excited. I don't know about excited. I'm very curious to see Dial of Destiny now because the reviews haven't been amazing, but I feel like I'm going to enjoy it. That's my
audience score
take.
is what's going to drive me.
Yes.
Like, yeah, critic score, whatever.
Yeah.
Audience score is what's really going to sell me on this movie.
Yes.
Because again, we can just transition to talking about Dial of Destiny here for a bit as we wrap up. I'm not like I've always thought this was an unnecessary movie, even when they announced it being a fifth one. Well, actually, back when they announced they were making another one, there was a lot of rumblings that they were going to do a reboot, and they were just going to get like a Chris Pratt to come in and be the new Indiana Jones, which, by the way, is the way they should have gone. With Chris Pratt, not necessarily, because that does kind of feel like his character from Jurassic World.
Yeah.
Just without the fedora and the whip and stuff. Like, his Owen Grady is a very Indiana Jones-esque character, so maybe not Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
But if you still wanted to be like, oh, let's get like a Harrison Ford, get Alden Ehrenreich, who did Young Han Solo. Get him and just do a reboot of Indiana Jones and start over. Like,
right.
I don't think we have to keep doing this with Indiana Jones, or yes, but with Harrison Ford. It could be a very James Bond type thing where you tell your stories and then you pass the mantle on to another actor and you reboot again and you tell a different story, or you just call it a day and just say Indiana Jones is done.
Say,
and
hey,
we're going to
done.
do graphic novels and video games, and like, that's what we're going to do to keep the franchise alive. You don't necessarily have to do movies.
Yeah.
So
there's actually, I didn't know this until I started watching. There is an Indiana Jones show, the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. It's on Disney Plus. There's like 30 episodes that are all an hour long. Like, this is a long show, and I really want to know if it's good because the audience score is pretty high. It's like 83.
Yeah, it's like, do stuff like that. Like, do spin-offs.
Yeah, do stuff like that.
Bring back in Short Round as an adult. Like,
right.
Do something
just
with
do
that.
random stuff like that. But I'm just saying. I really wish Tom Holland wasn't taking a break because
not Tom Holland. No,
fine. Mark Wahlberg will do plenty.
Man, you just bad takes. Just bad takes. I can't even genuinely think of like a good like actor to take over Indiana Jones.
It would have to be someone's big break. I really do.
It would have to be a big break, or somebody like Alden Ehrenreich who hasn't been in a ton of stuff.
Right, like someone that has done action, but not. Or what's that guy from Bullet Train? The
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yeah, he could do it.
Actually, I would watch that. Yeah, because he's Kraven the Hunter in the Kraven movie.
Yeah.
He's also Quicksilver.
Yeah.
From the MCU. Like, he's done some stuff. I would watch that. He's really funny.
I think he's good. So I don't know. There's potential. I think as long as Harrison Ford is alive, he will make sure no one else does it.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things where it's like, you love your grandparent, but you kind of want him to die so you can get the inheritance. And you're like, I love Harrison Ford, but I need you to die so we can make Indiana Jones movies without you.
No, that's horrible.
Like,
are you John Mulaney?
That's where I got the joke from.
Do you ever wish? Do you ever?
It's
pray.
It's one of those things where it's like, Dial of Destiny feels like they wanted to do a reboot because 90% of the trailers is just, hey, look, we de-aged Harrison Ford to look like he's 30 again. Okay, then just
find
do a reboot.
Different 30-year-old.
Like, do a reboot. I mean, I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I haven't seen her in anything. Or if I have, I just don't know what I've seen her in.
I think her main show is Fleabag, if I'm not mistaken.
She looks like a decent person who might have just been handed a bad script. I'm not going to pass judgment onto her. I'm going to pass judgment onto the character, which then leans more onto the writing and the decisions made there.
Oh, she was in Solo.
Was she really?
Yeah, I didn't realize that. She's the girl.
What? No, that's Amelia Clark.
Hold on, who was she in?
Was the girl.
No, you're right. She was L337. She was the droid.
Oh, she was the droid. Oh, never mind. I don't like her. I don't like the character she's typecast as. Because the droid was the worst part of Solo.
She's on she has
because
a show
the droid
called
was
Fleabag.
very like, oh, I'm standing up for droids' rights. Droids shouldn't be slaves. Okay, shut up. I don't need these kind of like politics in my Star Wars movie. Like, you missed the whole point of droids at that point.
Yeah.
Which seems like the same kind of character she's been typecast in Indiana Jones. Is well, I'm a woman. Hold for applause.
She has a show called Fleabag that I really want to watch. Oh, I'm a woman. Hold for applause.
Or like, there's that line from the trailer where he's like, I fought the Nazis, and she was like, yeah, but you stole from indigenous people. And I'm like,
Okay.
he stole the stones from the cult people in Temple of Doom to give it back to the people who were supposed to have it.
Yeah, I don't know how to read
and set the child
that.
slaves free. He's a hero wherever you look.
I don't know if her character is gonna be like she's super woke and like doesn't get it. I hope not. It's just like she doesn't get it. She's
I think that's why people
like
don't like her character.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna go in with an open mind, but
Right,
I'm just prepared to not like that character.
Yeah, I'm
based
on
the information that I have.
I'm a little nervous. My hopes. I just really wish the critics were like 98%. This is the best Indiana Jones movie, because then I could go in with some confidence of like, oh, this is going to be at least objectively good.
But according to the critics, it's objectively worse than what's considered the worst Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
Which is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
We will see. Also, why didn't they let Steven Spielberg direct it? Come on.
Wait. Oh, that's right. They didn't. But then they showed it to Steven Spielberg, and he was like, wow, this is so impressive. I didn't know other people could make an Indiana Jones movie as good as me. And I'm like, Steven, Mr. Spielberg. Blink twice if they're holding a gun to your head, making you say that.
Yeah, that has
Blink
to be marketing.
twice.
There's no way.
If Kathleen Kennedy has a gun to your head and says, say this nice thing about our movie, and he's like...
Yeah. Yeah, no, I am going in with an open mind, but expectations are not at a 10, essentially.
I will tell you right now, if at any point in the movie they pass the torch to Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I will get up and leave. I will not finish the movie.
Waller-Bridge.
Oh, it's Waller? Okay.
Waller-Bridge. She's very British. If they,
well, that's a red flag in and of itself. Anyway,
I feel like there will be some post-credit scene where she like picks up his hat and like the theme will play, and then we cut to black, and then I go ask for my money back.
I say, can I have my money? I hated that movie. Can I have it back? Can I have my 55 cents I paid as a convenience fee because I have Regal Unlimited? Can I have it back? I did not like this.
Gosh. Well, unless you have anything else to say, we can wrap up here.
No, I can't wait to see the thumbnail for this episode. I'm going to make it really cursed and put Indiana Jones. Like that scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark where he's like about to make the switch, but I'm going to crop it and Photoshop it so I can put him in front of a Walmart. And then I'm going to exchange the idol for something else, like a Lego set. And that's going to be the thumbnail for this episode.
That's a great thumbnail. I love that so much. Everyone, thank you for listening to this episode of the Nerdiest Podcast. Make sure you rate 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and subscribe on YouTube so you can see our iconic thumbnails to episodes at the Nerdiest Podcast. If you want to see our Walmart thumbnail for this episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're doing great original content there. Leave 5 stars, leave a review, and we'll watch it and we'll read it on the show. Follow on Instagram at the Nerdiest Podcast. We have some amazing stuff coming, so keep your dial tuned.
No.
And it is your destiny
to keep listening.
Thank you for listening. And we will see you in the next episode. Bye.